Behaviorism is a reasonable way of understanding how children learn some of the regular and routine aspects of language by the earliest stages. Children who do the little imitation acquire language as fully and rapidly as those who imitate a lot. The behaviorist theory believes that infants learn oral language from other human role models through a process involving imitation, rewards, and practice. These role models in an infant's environment provides the stimuli and rewards. And one of the earliest scientific explanations of language acquisition was provided by Skinner, one of the pioneers of behaviorism. Behaviorism also explains some aspects of language learning. Classical behaviorism is not a satisfactory explanation for the acquisition of the more complex grammar that children acquire. When a child attempts to imitate oral language, the sounds of speech patterns, they are usually praised and given affection for their efforts. For example, when the child says milk and the mother smiles and gives him some milk, as a result, the child will find this outcome rewarding. This will stimulate the child's language development. And behaviorist theory is basically a physiological theory and a theory of L1 language learning. The principles of the behaviorism position believes the quality and quantity of the language the child hears, as well as the consistency of the reinforcement, have an effect on the child's success in language learning. And there are different reinforcements. We have the positive, that is, this one increases the frequency of a behavior when applied. For example, if you finish your homework early, you get to go to the movies as a reward. We also have negative reinforcement, and this increases the frequency of behavior when removed. For example, to stop the buzzing sound of your car, you have to roll up the window. And we also have punishment, and this decreases the frequency of a behavior. For example, your parents take your cell phone away for one day each week to lower the phone bill. And all of these behaviorist theory is considered that all the learnings to be establishment for habits as a result of reinforcement and reward. It's to create a constant action followed by rewards and affection, and then it becomes a natural action of the child because he will find it an outcome rewarding.
How does behaviorism impact of a second language learning? Well, behaviorism offers a reasonable way of how children learn some of the regular and routine aspects of language, especially in the earliest stages. However, children who do a little imitation learn faster than the ones who do a lot of imitation. But let's talk about classical behaviorism. It doesn't give us a satisfactory explanation of how the children acquire a more complex grammar. So that's why the researchers are looking for a different explanation of how does this happen. Also, behaviorism gives us a lot of methods like audiolingual method, total physical response, silent way, and situational language teaching. Now we are going to talk about cognitivism. Cognitivism replaced behaviorism in 1960s, and it was introduced by Jean Piaget, who is a really important scientist in this theory. The cognitivists focus on inner mental activities, and it refers to the change in children's patterns of thinking as they grow older. The cognitivism starts with adaptation through assimilation and accommodation. Piaget proposed that children's thinking goes through 4 major stages. First of all, we have the sensomotor stage, who goes to their birth to the 2 years old. The principal goal of this stage is to object permanence, where the infant learns about the world through their actions and their senses, where the cognitive ability develops. Also, it's important to mention the sensomotor stage goes through all of these sub-stages that we are going to show you here. The pre-operational stage starts at the years of 2 and ends at the years of 7, where the principal goal is symbolically, where the child has a lot of egocentric thinking. He is still present focused, uses a lot of symbols, and understands concepts like content. It is important to mention that through all of these stages, the learners are active participants in the learning process. They also use the environment and social interaction to advance learning, and they learn through mental processing and need strategies to process information.
The concrete operational stage is the third stage in Piaget's theory of cognitive development. This period spans the time of middle childhood and begins around the age of 7 and continues until 11 years old, and is characterized by the development of logical thought with the goal of comprehend logical rules. Think of it as a transitional stage between the 2 earlier stages of development and the 4th stage. Operational stage is divided into 6 characteristics. First one, classification. There are 2 parts of classification. One is sorting things into categories. Your child is already can group flowers and animals into 2 separate categories. At this stage, they can go one step further. They understand that there are subclasses within a group, like yellow and red, flowers, or animals that fly and animals that swim. Conservation. This is understanding that something can stay the same quantity even though it looks different. That ball of Play-Doh is the same amount whether you squash it, flat, or roll it into a ball. Decentration. This is tied to conservation. Your child needs to figure out decentration so that they can conserve correctly. It's all about concentrating on several factors at the same time. A row of 5 paper clips is a row of 5 paper clips, no matter how far apart you space them. At this stage, your child realizes this because they can manipulate number and length at the same time. Reversibility. This involves an understanding that action can be reversed, sort of like mental gymnastics. Here, your child can figure out that your car is a Ford is a car, and a car is a vehicle. Seriation is all about mentally sorting a group of things into some sort of order. Now, your child can sort from the tallest to the shortest or the thinnest to the widest. Sociocentricity. Your child is no longer egocentric and fully focused on themselves. They're able to understand that mom has her own thoughts, feelings, and timetable. The formal operational stage is the 4th and final stage of Jean Piaget's theory of cognitive development. It begins at approximately at the age of 12 and lasts into adulthood. Children's thinking becomes much more sophisticated and advanced. Kids can think about abstract and theoretical concepts and use logic to come up with creative solutions to problems. These are the 6 skills developed during this stage. Deductive logic. Deductive logic requires the ability to use general principles to determine a particular outcome. abstract thought. Instead of relying solely on previous experiences, children begin to consider possible outcomes and consequences of actions. This type of thinking is important in long-term planning. Problem solving. In early stages, children use trial and error to solve problems. During the more formal operational stage, the ability to systematically solve a problem in a logical and methodical way emerges. And the last skill, hypothetical deductive reasoning. At this point, teens become capable of thinking about abstract and hypothetical ideas. They often ponder what-if type of situation and question and can think about multiple solutions or possible outcomes. The examples of cognitive learning strategies include asking students to reflect on their experience, helping students find new solutions to problems, encouraging discussions about what is being thought, helping students explore and understand how ideas are connected, asking students to justify and explain their thinking, using visualization to improve students' understanding and recall. The cognitive approach to psychology studies internal information processes such as perception, attention, language, and memory. Cognitive psychologists study this internal process and how they affect our emotion and behavior. Whilst cognitive psychology has been very useful in developing new theories and finding out more about how the mind works, the main criticism of cognitive psychology is that it is not directly observable. Another criticism, like other psychological approaches, is that this approach ignores other reasons for behavior other than cognitive. For instance, a behavior could be due to cognitive and social reasons. There are some limitations to this approach. Other criticisms is that this theory lacks of ecological validity. This means that researchers within cognitive psychology often conduct their study within a false setting or one which does not represent the real world. They say that this theory is reductionist. That means that oversimplify human behaviors. And another big problem for cognitive psychologists is that it is difficult to measure internal processes such as attention and perception. The teacher role as a cognitive teacher is to get and maintain the student attention. The teacher needs to provide models of learning strategies which will help students process information and transfer it into memory. The teacher can use visuals, mind maps, reviews, summaries, analysis, and discussion of topics. There is also an emphasis on inductive approaches and learner training, including modeling and teaching learning strategies. Additionally, the teacher needs to view learner as an information processor.